Have you ever noticed how the world demands you be strong all the time? As if showing fragility were practically a crime, and smiling were mandatory, even when inside you're falling apart. This silent demand creates a heavy armor that, instead of protecting, imprisons. Every time you hold back your tears, every time you pretend everything's okay, you move further away from who you truly are. And deep down, you begin to believe that being human, with fears, flaws, and weaknesses, is a flaw. But this mask of absolute strength comes at a high cost. It saps your vital energy, disconnects you from real connections, and slowly erodes your mental health. If this has touched you, let me know in the comments, like, and activate the bell, because this space is made for us to evolve together, without having to pretend to be perfect. From an early age, we learn that being strong is synonymous with being admired. The child who doesn't cry receives praise. The teenager who endures everything without complaining is seen as mature, and the adult who never shows weakness earns the label of warrior. This narrative is constructed so subtly that it infiltrates the unconscious, shaping automatic behaviors. Psychoanalysis calls this process the ego ideal, a rigid, unattainable image of who we should be, which makes us repress legitimate emotions to maintain the appearance of strength. The problem is that this repression doesn't disappear. It merely accumulates deep within the psyche, creating internal tensions that sooner or later manifest as anxiety, chronic stress, or a hard-to-name emptiness. Subconsciously, this constant pressure transforms into beliefs. If I'm not strong, I won't be loved. If I show pain, I'll be rejected. These are inner voices that echo phrases or attitudes we've received from family members, teachers, and even cultural idols. They fuel a cycle of self-sabotage. Even when we feel the need to ask for help, pride, or rather the fear of being seen as weak, keeps us silent. And this creates an unbearable contradiction. We want connection, but we wear masks that distance us even further. From a motivational psychology perspective, this belief in unbreakable strength ends up creating unrealistic performance standards. The culture of overcoming, so prevalent in inspirational discourse, often distorts the idea of personal growth, transforming it into a race with no finish line. Messages like, "You can do anything if you want," or "Never give up," seem motivating, but they also conceal a danger: the denial of human limits. Excessive motivation without self-compassion becomes a burden, not fuel. In the esoteric field, this attitude of constant hardness is seen as an energetic imbalance. Imagine a river that refuses to flow, accumulating water behind a dam. The vital energy, which should flow freely between light and shadow, ends up stagnant. By denying the right to feel pain, anger, or vulnerability, we also block the expansion of consciousness. Strength without flexibility becomes rigidity, and rigidity in body or soul is always a harbinger of breakdown. This first dive reveals something essential. Being strong all the time is not an unquestionable virtue, but a learned mechanism for surviving in a world that still fears vulnerability. The real problem is when we confuse survival with life. In this confusion, we spend years playing social roles that distance us from our essence. The psyche, however, never forgets. What is repressed demands return, and the longer we try to maintain the mask, the more painful the encounter with what we deny within ourselves. When we choose, or rather when we are conditioned, to maintain strength all the time, we inevitably begin to pay a high, silent, and profound price. Emotionally, the impact is immediate, yet often invisible. By constantly repressing feelings like sadness, fear, or anger, we create a layer of internal anesthesia. We begin to live in a kind of numb state, where we no longer know if what we feel is real or just an edited version of ourselves. This dissociation creates a void, a hole in the chest that, no matter how much we try to fill with achievements, work, or distractions, is never satisfied. In clinical psychology, it is common to observe that this chronic repression of emotions leads to the development of disorders, such as generalized anxiety and depression. The mind, tired of maintaining a facade of invulnerability, begins to fail. Anxiety, for example, is often the bodily translation of what we dare not express in words. Depression, on the other hand, can arise as a consequence of years of swallowing feelings and stifling our own humanity. The body screams when the mouth is silent. The consequences don't stop at the psychic level. They spill over into the physical, manifesting in psychosomatic symptoms: constant muscle pain, insomnia, migraines, gastrointestinal problems. All of this because the body becomes the stage for unexperienced emotions. When the mind insists on denying the pain, the body takes charge of reminding us that something is wrong. The strength to endure everything, in practice, becomes illness. On a social level, the demand to be strong all the time creates invisible walls. It's difficult to build true relationships when we never allow ourselves to show vulnerability. Friendships and love become superficial because what truly connects us, our fragilities and imperfections, remains hidden. How many times have you felt alone even when surrounded by people? This is the result of relationships based on masks, apparent closeness, but real emotional distance. And here comes a more subtle, esoteric aspect: energetic imbalance. By stifling emotions, we interrupt the natural flow of vital energy. The chakras related to expression, throat, the heart, emotions and affection, and the solar plexus, self-esteem, become blocked. The result is a feeling of being disconnected from oneself and the world, as if life has lost its color. Strength without balance becomes rigidity, and rigidity is always a prelude to rupture. In the symbolic dimension, it's as if we're trying to live like rocks, resistant, hard, immovable. But humans are not stone, they are water. Water that flows, that adapts, that finds new paths. When we constantly try to be stone, we distance ourselves from our essential nature, and as a consequence, we experience an internal collapse: emotional, mental, spiritual. This collapse can come in the form of panic attacks, burnout, or even drastic decisions, the result of years of inner silence. The soul takes its toll. What is unsaid, unmourned, and unshared finds an outlet, and often that outlet is not the healthiest. This is why being strong all the time not only exhausts, but destroys. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a psychological and existential reality. Recognizing this is taking the first step toward understanding that strength without vulnerability is not strength, but imprisonment. Every time we hide who we are to maintain a facade of impenetrability, we distance ourselves from what would truly help us evolve: the courage to be human. True strength lies not in carrying the world on your shoulders, but in recognizing when the weight is too great. There's a cultural myth that vulnerability is weakness, when in reality, admitting our pain requires far more courage than hiding it. Think about it. What's harder, pretending nothing affects you, or looking someone in the eye and confessing that you need help? The first option may feel comfortable, but it keeps you trapped. The second opens space for freedom, healing, and genuine connection. In positive psychology, we learn that resilience isn't born from denying difficulties, but from the ability to integrate them into life. Resilience isn't about being unbreakable. It's about knowing that we can fall and still get back up. Psychoanalysis also shows us that by accepting our frailties, we are giving voice to the unconscious that has been silenced for so long. This simple gesture, accepting what hurts, breaks through years of repression and paves the way for a more authentic life. It is precisely in this space of vulnerability that the deepest human connections emerge. When we allow ourselves to be seen in our imperfections, we create bonds of trust. It's at this point that true friendships are born, loving relationships flourish, and communities are strengthened. Because the truth is, no one connects with masks. We connect with what's real, even if imperfect. And here's an important reminder. If this content resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, activate the bell, and comment on how you deal with the pressure of being strong. This helps the channel grow, but more than that, it helps create a community of people who support and recognize each other on this journey. Coming back, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you discover that life becomes lighter. It's like letting go of a backpack full of rocks that you've been carrying without realizing it. This act allows vital energy to flow again. In the esoteric realm, we can understand this as an alignment. By accepting the shadow, we balance light and darkness within ourselves. Vulnerability is the bridge between rigidity and fluidity, between collapse and expansion. Thus, vulnerability is not the opposite of strength, but its foundation. Because only those who know their weaknesses and still decide to move forward are truly strong. If we've understood so far that sustaining absolute strength destroys, and that vulnerability is a path to liberation, the next step is to transform this knowledge into concrete practice. Because simply understanding intellectually isn't enough. It's necessary to create experiences that reprogram body, mind, and energy. The first step is self-observation. Set aside moments of silence to notice how you react to your own emotions. Ask yourself, when was the last time I allowed myself to cry without judging myself? Or how many times in the last few days have I said I was okay when in fact I wasn't? This simple self-analysis already begins to break the pattern of automatic strength. Another powerful exercise is therapeutic writing. Write down what you can't say out loud. Don't worry about form, grammar, or meaning. Just let it flow. The act of writing gives body to repressed emotions and allows the psyche to find a healthy outlet. Over time, rereading these texts can also reveal thought patterns you repeat without realizing it. From a bodily perspective, conscious breathing practices are essential. Deep rhythmic breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, responsible for relaxing and balancing the body. Inhaling slowly, holding for a few seconds, and exhaling slowly may seem overly simple, but it is precisely this simplicity that accesses deep layers of calm and clarity. When we breathe better, we feel better. In the psychoanalytic field, a practical step is to identify projections. Often, what we judge in others is exactly what we hide within ourselves. By observing these reactions, we can understand denied parts of our being. This awareness does not eliminate internal conflicts, but opens space for their integration. The goal is not to erase the shadow, but to recognize it as part of the whole. In the esoteric dimension, simple rituals can help unblock stagnant energy. Lighting a candle, meditating with crystals, practicing energy-clearing visualizations. All these actions function as symbols that communicate with the subconscious. They communicate to the mind that you are creating space to reconnect with your essence. The power of these gestures lies not only in their mystical nature, but in the intention they carry, to allow yourself to flow again. Another practical path is to seek support in communities, therapeutic groups, or sharing circles. The simple act of verbalizing experiences in a safe space breaks loneliness and strengthens your sense of belonging. It's a reminder that you don't have to face everything alone. Transforming vulnerability into a daily practice isn't a quick process, but it is profoundly transformative. And each small step, writing, breathing, sharing, observing, takes the weight off your backpack. The result is a lighter, more authentic, and paradoxically stronger life. Not the strength of rigidity, but the strength of flexibility, acceptance, and real connection. Being strong all the time isn't a sign of evolution, it's a sign of exhaustion. True maturity arises when you recognize that you don't have to bear the weight of the world alone. When you allow yourself to be human, with falls, fears, and tears, you discover that vulnerability isn't weakness but a source of authenticity and connection. It's in this space that you find your vital energy flowing again, create truer relationships, and pave the way for a lighter, more meaningful life. If this video touched you in any way, like it, subscribe, activate the bell, and share in the comments how you deal with the pressure of being strong. And if you want to continue this journey of self-discovery, click on the video that appears in the card. It's the next step for those seeking to grow, evolve, and reconnect with their own essence.